The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
You are either a Hall of Famer or you're not a Hall of Famer. You can say first ballot for some might have to wait. Maybe there's some debate about some of the coaches who have gone into the Hall of Fame. For example, Don Coryell never made it to a Super Bowl. He's in the Hall of Fame. Tom Flores won 2 of them, but had only 6 winning seasons as coach of the Raiders. So, what is this all about? This is about retribution. And the only thing I can say about it is it might actually be good. Because now we finally get to see the absurdity of the Hall of Fame and the selection process, which has kept Joe Jacoby out unjustly for way too long. And it's just such a random process with now Hall of Fame voters taking it upon themselves to issue punishment for alleged crimes committed a long time ago. Look, there are some who you might say, well, they didn't get in the first time. Along the way, they would get in. A guy like Flores, who waited a long time with 2 Super Bowl championships. Like 2 Super Bowl championships is kind of the automatic ticket to get in. Although you could look at George Seifert, who won 2 with the 49ers, and I would say that the first one he won was gifted to him by Bill Walsh, who had burned out and decided to retire the year before. That team could have won with Bill Walsh. That could have won with Bill Walsh staying home. That's how good of a team he had built. And so certainly Seifert benefited from that. And the last time we saw Seifert as a head coach, he went 1-15 with the Carolina Panthers. Okay, those guys, they were on the ballot as well to get in. And we don't know whether they got in or not. You should be up to speed on this by now, but if you're not, this came out late yesterday afternoon, that Don Van Natta and Seth Wickersham, who have become sort of the Woodward and Bernstein of ESPN, they've broken a number of stories and I think played a pretty big role in getting Dan Snyder out of here as the owner of the Commanders. But they had reported late yesterday that Belichick fell short of the 40 out of 50 votes needed for induction into the Hall of Fame. That means of 50 voters, 11 of them looked at Bill Belichick with 8 Super Bowl rings, 6 of them as a head coach, which is 2 more than anybody else in the history of the game. Chuck Noll is the leader in the clubhouse with 4. And the other 2 came as defensive coordinator of the New York Giants. And you might argue that the 2 championships that Bill Parcells won, the 2 Super Bowls that Parcells won as a head coach, were greatly influenced by Bill Belichick. How do I know this? I covered those teams when I was in New York. At one time, I was the beat reporter for WFAN with the Giants. I covered the Bill Parcells Giants, and I saw this up close, how important Bill Belichick was. Is he a jerk? Yeah. Has he embarrassed himself since he was pushed out of New England and had that experience with the girlfriend and the whole mishigas going on at North Carolina? Yeah. And certainly he pissed off people along the way. But you're telling me that out of 50 Hall of Fame voters, there were at least 11 who said, nah, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. Now, we'll get into the Bill Polian thing because there's a question as to whether or not Bill Polian told the other voters, yeah, let's make him wait a year. And this does have to do, there's no question about it. It has to do with Spygate and Deflategate, for which he was never suspended. The team was fined, and I believe it cost him a first-round draft pick for one of them, and that's not to excuse it. But it's not the duty of a Hall of Fame voter to decide whether the punishment was enough for Bill Belichick and that they would actually mete out their own punishment on this. I mean, to me, it's the smell test, right? Is he a Hall of Famer or is he not a Hall of Famer? Well, let's see. Let's count the Super Bowl rings. Well, he's got 6 of them. Anybody else have 6? Nope. Nobody's got 6. Anybody else have 5? Nope. Nobody's got 5. Chuck Noll's got 4. Okay. Chuck Noll would be obviously a Hall of Famer, and I believe he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. And by the way, on the Hall of Fame for coaches, in case you're not aware of this, the players have to wait 5 years after they retire. For the coaches, and this was started when Vince Lombardi died of cancer after coaching his last season with the Redskins. He died right before the start of what would have been his second year here, and they said, well, we may have other coaches in health situations, and we don't want to make them wait, make the families wait until after they die, so let's make a special rule here for coaches that they can go in just a year after they retire. And in fact, Joe Gibbs was not a first ballot Hall of Famer. Was he not deserving of being a Hall of Famer? Of course he's a Hall of Famer. 3 Super Bowls, 3 different quarterbacks, and none of them Hall of Famers. Nobody's got a resume like that. But there was concern that Joe Gibbs was going to come back and coach. And there was reason to believe that Carolina was going to hire him when they came in as an expansion team 2 years after he retired. They finally gave up in 1996, and they put him in. And he, to this point, is the only coach to come out of the Hall of Fame and coach again, which he did with the Redskins. And, yeah, I mean, it wasn't like the first go-round, but compared to everybody else that Dan Snyder had, he did well. He went to 2 playoffs and won a playoff game, which was better success than anybody else that he had in the reign of terror 24 years as the owner. But here's the issue here, and I think it relates. Well, I got 2 things on this. One is what Bill Polian said. He said to SI that he voted for Bill Belichick. He's one of the voters. He's a Hall of Famer as a general manager and should be. Took 4 teams to Super Bowls, won one with the Colts. He's one of the voters. He told SI that he voted for Bill Belichick. Yet, in this story that was broken by Van Natta and Wickersham yesterday, he said he couldn't recall whether or not he voted for Bill Belichick. Oh, come on. You're telling me that Bill Polian looked at this list and saw a coach with 6 Super Bowl championships and would have certainly, if he was doing his job and not, issuing his own punishment, he would have said, oh, yeah, of course. He's a Hall of Fame coach. No question about it. He's got 2 more Super Bowls than anybody else who's ever coached the game. And I've never been in the room with these Hall of Fame voters, but I know some of them. And I've talked to many of them over the years about the process, about how it works. And it's not necessarily a vote. See, it's not like the Baseball Hall of Fame, which has many, many more voters. It's 240 something, I believe, for baseball. For football, it's 39 guys in a room, most of them writers, and they sit around and they discuss the candidacy. And I don't know if there's a secret vote or how the vote is taken, but it's more or less a conversation with a reporter who covered this particular player or coach or general manager throughout his career, making the case for him in the room with the other people. And for some, I mean, it's ridiculous. And I've heard this. The name Joe Montana comes up, and they go, next. Joe Montana's a Hall of Famer. Of course he is, right? When Tom Brady comes up, and this is going to be interesting too, Tom Brady with his 7 Super Bowl championships, yet the key player in the Deflategate teams and the Spygate teams. Are they going to hold that against him? Why not? If you're going to get nuts, as George Costanza said, let's get nuts. If you're not going to put in a coach who has 6 Super Bowl championships, why not leave out in the first year the quarterback who has 7 rings? Which is, by the way, 3 more than anybody else. 3 more. 3 more than Bradshaw. 3 more than Montana, right? So if you want to do it that way, go ahead. But here's where I think this actually is going to be beneficial in the long run, because I've felt that the Hall of Fame voting process has been awful for years. Art Monk was left out, I think, for 8 years of eligibility. Art Monk, when he retired, was the NFL's all-time leading receiver. He was the first player to catch 100 balls in a season. He's a Hall of Famer. But they kept him out because Peter King, who was one of the most influential voters, he's now retired from the committee, but Peter King would say, hey, when I covered the Giants, the coaching staff used to say we were much more afraid of Gary Clark than Art Monk. Well, they played a different type of position. Art Monk was the possession receiver. He kept the chains moving in a run-oriented offense. Yeah, Gary Clark was explosive. Gary Clark was a terrific player and tough as nails would go over the middle. But it was a different position. It's like, comparing a tight end to a tackle. They're different positions. And that's what kept him out for so long. Finally, Joe Gibbs had a conversation with him, and they go, oh, yeah, I guess he deserves to get it. I mean, guys like Adam Schefter would say, oh, did Art Monk have a signature catch in his career? Who cares? That wasn't what it was about. It was about that he was a key contributor to 3 Super Bowl championship teams, 4 Super Bowl teams, and had numbers that made him among the elite receivers of all time, especially for the era that he played in. Numbers have changed, obviously, since he left 30 years ago. So there's that. As for the Polian situation, and this is from Seth Wickersham, who was on last night on ESPN with David Lloyd. Again, he tells SI he voted for Bill Belichick, and in this piece that was done by Van Natt and Wickersham, he says, I can't recall. Oh, please. This isn't some obscure coach. This is Bill freaking Belichick. I can't recall. This is Wickersham with Lloyd on, first of all, the reaction from Belichick and others when this story dropped yesterday that he's not going to make it this year.
I mean, it's a pure stunner. And I think when Don Van Natt and I were putting together the story, we were trying to figure out how exactly something like this could happen. And I think that part of it is procedural. You can, in that particular line of voting, you can vote for up to 3 candidates. So I think that there are some voters who voted for other people thinking that Bill would get in. There's some people who maybe put Belichick lower on their list. And then I think there are people who are still frustrated, feeling like that teams around the NFL were cheated out of wins because of the Spygate controversy. Remember, Don Van Natt and I, about 10 years ago, wrote about how Deflategate was a makeup call for a perceived lack of punishment, or a light punishment for Spygate. And I think all of that stuff kind of conspired to lead to this stunning result, which is that Bill Belichick, 8-time Super Bowl champion, a resume unlike almost every coach, second all-time in wins, isn't going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
One of the guys on the committee, former Colts GM Bill Polian, I know from just talking to Bill that he certainly respected Belichick as a coach. Maybe not so much his tactics, his morals, however you want to put it in that basket. What do you know about what Bill Polian might have had to do with any of this?
Well, we reported in the story how Bill Polian has said, not in the deliberations, but outside of the deliberations, that he thought that Belichick shouldn't get in on the first ballot because of the cheating scandal of Spygate in 2007. He's come out and he said that he did vote for Belichick this time around. We never wrote in the story that he didn't vote for Bill. Again, you can vote for up to 3 different candidates. Did that have an influence on the voters? We polled around a little bit. I think that there are people who still think that Spygate was worse than it ever kind of got led on. In the same sense, I think there's a lot of people who felt like Bill should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer, but you need 40 votes to get in, and he fell short.
You said it's a stunner. It's certainly, by any metric, it seems like this is a first ballot Hall of Fame coach. I know Bill Belichick was informed on Friday, and we talked about him being puzzled and disappointed. I'm sure it got a little stronger than that. What else can you tell us about Belichick's reaction to all this?
Well, I think that, look, Belichick at his age, he's been through a lot, and I think that nothing truly surprises him. But I think that there was a sense from him as what do you have to do? What, 6 Super Bowls as a head coach isn't enough? A sustained period of winning in the salary cap era isn't enough? All of the records and all of the unbelievable moments, some of the greatest moments in games played in NFL history isn't enough? I think that that sentiment was pervasive with him. It was pervasive with the people that he talked to over the weekend. And now I think if you look online, I think it's pretty pervasive there too.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, there have been 4 NFL head coaches to go in on the first ballot: Vince Lombardi, Chuck Noll, Tom Landry, and Don Shula. Bill Belichick will not be joining them, and maybe something more was at play here. Yeah,
and that's the voters, at least 11 of them, apparently trying to play commissioner here, commissioner of the Hall of Fame. Like they decide, oh, yeah, he's got the numbers, but we're going to make him sit for a year. And I think the Weasley answer for Bill Polian, I don't remember. Oh, please. This is not a candidate you forget. Now, there were 9 coaches who were up for this. They could vote for, as you heard Wickersham say, up to 3. The others, Tom Coughlin, Yes, won 2 of them with the Giants. Fired a couple of times. Did not necessarily succeed in Jacksonville. Mike Holmgren went to 3 Super Bowls, won 1. I think he's a Hall of Fame coach, but it's not a slam dunk, certainly like Bill Belichick. Chuck Knox never made it to a Super Bowl, as far as I know. Yeah, he coached the Rams and he coached the Seahawks. I don't believe that. Bills, they never made it. He never made a Super Bowl. Buddy Parker, that goes back. That's pre-Super Bowl era. I don't even know. I should check that. I don't even know if he won a championship. Dan Reeves never won a Super Bowl. Marty Schottenheimer never made it to a Super Bowl. George Seifert won 2 off, I believe, the Bill Walsh scholarship there. And Mike Shanahan won 2 with Denver. And the only thing that, and I would vote for Mike, the thing that probably hurt him is he went into the reverse car wash known as Washington. You go in clean, you come out dirty. And the feeling was when he was hired in 2010, he's got 2 Super Bowls. He's going to build another one here, and that's going to cement him for the Hall of Fame, and he's going to turn the team over his son, Kyle. Well, didn't work out that way because of an owner by the name of Dan Snyder, and Shanahan never coached again after he left here. So that may have had something to do with it. I don't know, but there to me on that list there are 3 slam dunks. If you can have 3 votes, it's pretty easy. Number 1, Bill Belichick. To me, number 2 would be Mike Shanahan. And number 3 would be Tom Coughlin because they've got the magic 2 Super Bowl numbers. But the voters, and I'll be interested to see if who these coaches are, who they choose. I mean, how much of an embarrassment is that going to be when this is announced the day before the Super Bowl? Oh, yeah, these other coaches got in and Bill Belichick did not. Really? He will have. Let's just say the 3 coaches that get in, if 3 make it, with Shanahan, 2, Coughlin, 2. That's it. Mike Holmgren's got 1. So if you take 3 of them, they'd have 5 combined. Belichick's got 6. That's a complete embarrassment for the Hall of Fame. You have to apologize for that. That's insane. I've seen online or on social media, hey, the voters who didn't vote for him should have their vote taken away. No, they shouldn't. No, they shouldn't, because they do have the choice of a vote. You can't tell a person how to vote, but you also can't have a Hall of Fame that can say, oh, yeah, these are our Hall of Fame coaches. And you know that guy out there with 8 rings, 6 of them as a head coach? Yeah, he's not getting in, at least not this year. And we'll see what happens next year. We'll see how that goes. Now, there's one other factor in this, and that is the Robert Kraft factor. I hadn't really thought of this till I read the Wickersham and Van Natta story. Bob Kraft's 84 years old. He was finalist this year for the first time, and he was the owner of those 6 Super Bowl championships. Jerry Jones has 3, hasn't won one in over 30 years. Jerry Jones got in. I would think if Jones gets in, Kraft gets in. But Kraft being on the same ballot as Belichick, and we know what's happened to their relationship in the last few years. It's gotten so bad that Belichick won't even let New England scouts on the campus of North Carolina to look at his players. Not that any of them are necessarily draft picks, but it's scorched earth now between the 2 of them. Is it possible, with the influence that Bob Kraft has, that he made it clear to the other voters who he knows people like Polian, and said, I don't want to go in with that MFer. I don't want that to happen. I'm not going to be up there and try and make nice as we're both inducted into the Hall of Fame. So is it possible that they're going to put Kraft in and make sure that Belichick is not going to be a part of that? Now, Belichick's up there, too. He's 73. Kraft is 84. So maybe they're feeling, well, if we don't get Kraft in now, who knows, once you get up to that age, or as we say, kind of year to year. So I don't know. I think that might play into it. And the big takeaway for me is this diminishes the people who are already in the Hall of Fame. That coaches who are in with, in some cases, 1 championship. Like, is Bill Cowher a Hall of Famer? No. Bill Cowher got in because David Baker, who was like Shrek, he's like 6'9", 400 pounds, used to like to get himself on TV. So he shows up on the set of CBS so that he can put Cowher in, and then he shuffles off to Fox to put Jimmy Johnson in. Jimmy was a great coach, and the 3rd Super Bowl that Jerry won, was really because of what Jimmy built. I mean, Coach Gunslinger. No, that was Jimmy's championship. So he was a great coach, but he coached only 9 years in the NFL, and he won 80 games. He was 80-64. Those are good numbers, and 2 Super Bowls, nothing to sneeze at. But he got in because David Baker wanted to be on national TV, and maybe Jimmy would get in anyway. But that was all a part of the dog and pony show that they used to do. And Joe Jacoby is not in because he's not visible enough. He's not somebody that David Baker is going to want to go knock on his door and put him in. He's not sexy enough for him. And it's a joke. So I would say this. The takeaway, number one takeaway from this, the people who are in, diminished by this because a clear-cut Hall of Famer should have gotten in. And on top of that, the whole process is exposed as to how fraudulent it is. That Art Monk's kept out for 8 years because something Peter King said. The fact that Joe Jacoby isn't in is a joke. He was one of 4 all-decade tackles of the 80s. He was on the 30th anniversary Super Bowl team put together by John Madden. He's got the credentials. He was the most consistent member of the most famous offensive line in history, the Hogs. Russ Grimm got in 15 years ago. And Russ Grimm was a great player, but Russ Grimm had a lot of injuries in his career and wasn't even a starter on that last Super Bowl team. So what you're seeing here, hopefully, the good that comes out of it, at least for me, is that people look at this and go, oh, God, that Hall of Fame process, that's a joke. You're telling me Bill Belichick's not a Hall of Famer? Well, maybe they ought to review the whole process and look at it in a different way and how the voting is done. So if this is the tipping point, I'm really happy about this. And if this is the tipping point that leads to Joe Jacoby getting in the Hall of Fame next year, way to go. Way to go, voters. Great job. Great job. And hopefully people will recognize how ridiculous this whole process is. All right, coming up, we'll shift to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who got a yinzer. Got a local guy to coach their football team. We'll get to that next. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
I'm going to try not to be completely obsessed with this Hall of Fame snub for Bill Belichick, but just more and more things are spilling out of the closet as this story has been percolating now for, a little over 12 hours, 15 hours or so. It seems that Armando Salguero was the one who was charged with making the Hall of Fame presentation for Bill Belichick. Now, it seemed to me that the presentation would go like this. Bill Belichick, 6 Super Bowl championships. Next. That's it. But he did all the background work, did his due diligence, and during his Hall of Fame presentation, he put this out today on Twitter, what he had done and had gotten, because the first person you'd go to get a testimony for Bill Belichick would be Tom Brady. It'd be like if you're putting Phil Jackson in the Hall of Fame. For me, it would be 11 NBA championships next. But okay, I would get something from Michael Jordan. This is the equivalent of that. This is getting a Michael Jordan quote for Phil Jackson. Tom Brady getting a Hall of Fame vote for Bill Belichick. And I don't think when he put out this quote, he would have imagined in any way that Belichick was not getting in on the first ballot. But he wrote, I don't believe that any coach in the history of the game has done more to earn his place in the Hall of Fame than Bill Belichick. To say that he was my greatest coaching influence would be an understatement. His tremendous leadership, vision, and daily discipline allowed our team to excel in nearly every area for almost 2 decades. We were consistently competitive at the highest level every week as he challenged us to grow from the day the season started to the day it ended. That's the role of a head coach. That's Bill Belichick. I had a front row seat for 20 years watching the greatest coach of all time prepare, teach, and lead. He set the standard every single day. His mindset, his consistency, his ability to adapt and evolve was unmatched. He expected a championship-level standard from everyone in the building, and he got it. That's why we won. That's why he belongs in Canton. I'm grateful for what we accomplished together, and I'll always be proud of the team he built. No one's more deserving of this honor than Bill Belichick. No, duh. Of course. Now, if you're going to be consistent as voters, if you're punishing Bill Belichick for Deflategate and Spygate, well, you ought to punish his number one guy. and especially for Deflategate, since Tom Brady served a 4-game suspension. So let's be consistent here. The at least 11 who said, Bill Belichick, not voting him in. At least 11 of them, if you're going to be consistent, and I don't believe in taking their vote away, some do, I don't. If you're going to be consistent, make sure when Brady comes up, I think it might be 2 more years, because what was his last year, 2022 or 2023? 2022. So I think he's got another at least 2 years to go. But when he comes up, 7 Super Bowl rings, but 4-game suspension for Deflategate. And he had to be in on Spygate, too. I mean, it's not like he was an innocent bystander on that. So let's punish him, too. Let's keep it. Let's make it really stupid. Let's go completely stupid and not put Tom Brady in. Because if you're using the same logic that you used with Belichick, you don't put him in. Mike McCarthy, his name will come up someday as a conceivable Hall of Famer, right? He's won a Super Bowl championship. He won one with Aaron Rodgers with the Packers. Didn't win in Dallas. Now he's off to his hometown to see if he can deliver their 7th Super Bowl championship. They're now tied with the Patriots at 6 apiece. So can he deliver number 7? Well, if you went to Central Casting and you were looking for the Pittsburgh guy to lead the Pittsburgh Steelers, it would be Mike McCarthy. And I don't think I've ever seen this in an introductory news conference. Certainly, coaches are grateful to get these kind of jobs. There's only 32 of them, and this is what you work your whole life for, to become a head coach. And maybe this is the pinnacle to do it in your hometown, though, can you imagine the Dallas Cowboys with someone other than Tom Landry coaching the team, or Jimmy Johnson? Jimmy Johnson was also from Texas, not from Dallas, but they were native sons to the state. When I covered the Giants with Bill Parcells, he was a Jersey guy. The team played in Jersey. He fit the bill, and he would have been a Central Casting guy. Same thing for McCarthy, but unlike Bill Parcells or probably in 1960 when they named Tom Landry, there was really, Landry never had any emotion, happiness, or sadness. But this was McCarthy yesterday after being introduced by Art Rooney as the now 4th coach of the Steelers since 1969.
All right, here we go. Thank you, Art. I think I thought at least be able to get started. Oftentimes coaches and players, you put on new team colors, and it takes a minute to feel comfortable in those new colors. But to be blessed beyond any measure, one day to put on the colors you wore since you brought home. I apologize. Brett, I told you not to sit my family down here in front. This is so unfair. When you come home from Mercy Hospital, I do want to thank Art Rooney, Omar Khan, Dan Rooney, and the entire Steelers organization for the trust they placed in me to represent one of the most storied franchises in all of sports. I understand and embrace the responsibility, the privilege, and the weight that comes with this stewardship. This city, this franchise, this fan base means the world to me, because Pittsburgh's my world, and it's just awesome to be back here. I do want to thank 2 men I'm very fortunate to call friends, Mike Tomlin and Bill Cowher. They've represented this organization with such class, and I'm honored to follow in their footsteps. They left the proverbial cupboard full, for sure. My family, my loves, my wife Jessica, kids Alex and Danny, Jack, George, Gabby, and Izzy, my parents, Joe and Ellen McCarthy, my sisters, Kelly, Ellen, and Colleen, and the crew that's here. We can finally openly wear our Steelers swag, so let's get it. My heart is full, my focus is singular, and it's time to bring another championship back to this great city. And with that, I just want to make sure that when we do get that trophy, that the 7th trophy in the case, we'll start that victory parade at 1137 Greenfield Avenue.
Which is where he grew up, a Pittsburgh guy, a Yinzer. And you can tell by the accent there that he never lost. I believe his father owned a bar, so he worked as a bartender. And I'll tell you another coach who was a bartender's son and did pretty well, Al McGuire. Al McGuire, who won the championship at Marquette in 1977, went on to that great broadcasting career with NBC and CBS. it didn't take long to get to this, and maybe this played a role in Mike McCarthy becoming the coach of the Steelers, and that he won his Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. So among the first questions was this.
In your best case scenario, do you want Aaron Rodgers back as your quarterback next year?
That's nice the way he asked that, right? That was slick. But, I mean, definitely. I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't. But, I think just like anything, knowing Aaron long enough, going through seasons, I think when players, to see Mel Blunt here, I mean, when guys are up at that stage of their career, they need to step away and decompress it. I think that's very important. The game is so emotional, what these men commit to and what they put into it. I think that time away is important, and I have spoken to Aaron, and so that's really where we are there. But I was able to sit back and watch the games. I watched most of the Pittsburgh games on TV. And I thought he was a great asset for the team.
Well, we'll see. I would say this. First year might not be a bad idea to bring him in. You kind of got that honeymoon period there. Now, it's a team that's been a consistent playoff team, a consistent winner. Mike Tomlin never had a losing season. So, you might want to keep that going. But if the Aaron Rodgers thing blows up in the first year, then you turn that page and you move on. But if you think, and I don't really know if they have the makings of a Super Bowl team, even if Rodgers has a great year, but that it would seem to be among the low-risk moves right now if Rodgers wants to play. Now, he's talking about, stepping away and decompressing, which is what he does. He goes in the cone of silence, and he goes off to some desert island, and, there's all this whole drama that has to play out. He may have said to Aaron Rodgers, look, I'd like to have you, but I got too much to do in my first year getting ready to go and getting the lay of the organization and the land and all that. So if you want to play, great. Let's get something done pretty soon. Like I got to know before we start minicamp. And I mean like a couple of weeks before minicamp. This was like the day before where he'd, oh, yeah, I'm going to be at minicamp and all's well. What are you all worried about? But I would make sure to do that. Now, if it's not Rodgers, then what? Who's left on the roster? You got this quarterback Howard, who played at Ohio State. They won the national championship with him. They have Mason Rudolph, who seems to have been there forever and seems to be destined to be a backup forever. But that's what's there, and they're not going to be drafting high enough, and certainly not in this draft, which is pretty barren for quarterbacks. They're not going to be able to draft one. But as far as developing one and how they may do it down the road, this was Mike McCarthy on that.
You've had great success over the years developing quarterbacks, but you're taking over an organization here who wants to win now. How do you balance winning now and finding that next franchise quarterback?
Well, I think you're always developing the quarterback. And I been blessed to have, great starters, particularly, the last one, Dak Prescott, Aaron and Green Bay Brett. But we've always approached it as the quarterback room. And because, that second quarterback, a third quarterback, they need to emulate the starter because that starter is dictating the rhythm and the timing and the precision with the perimeter guys. So I'm excited where I'm going with this. I'm really excited about Will Howard. I think he's someone that I thought he really came on there at Ohio State. I'm anxious to work with him. So, it'd be great to have Aaron back. But, Will and Mason, I'm really excited to get started with those guys.
So, kids, it's not Will Howard, it's Will Hard. Will Hard, which is the way they say it in Pittsburgh, in the Berg, with French fries on the sandwich. So, I don't know. He looks the part, sounds the part. A departure from what they've done. They've been hiring assistant coaches who have been in their 30s and ridden a long time with them. And Mike McCarthy's 62 years old. In fact, he was asked about longevity on the job given his age, and he kind of danced around that. But I would think this is probably a 5-year thing. I think the reality of that is they're going to be probably looking at somebody else unless he has Andy Reid type of success. Andy Reid was actually a little bit younger when he went to Kansas City, but Andy Reid, now the oldest coach in the league, at 67, 68. I think he's my age. He'll be 68 this year. he's staying, I'm sure, at least another year in Kansas City, and they're probably going to, squeeze one more year out of the older guys. I don't know if Kelsey comes back, but I think they're going to make one more run at it, and that's probably going to be it. But McCarthy at least has got a couple of years, maybe 3 years to show something, and if it doesn't work, then the Steelers will do something very un-Steeler-like and move on from a head coach after only 3 years. We'll see. All right, coming up, Tony Romo was on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, addressing what we talk about now, and we talk about this more than we ever have, performance of announcer. We'll get to that next. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Hey, if you just jump in your car, I went through some of the tape from the news conference yesterday with Mike McCarthy, who doesn't rule out bringing in Aaron Rodgers, got emotional about returning to his hometown and said when they win their 7th Super Bowl, they're going to start the parade at the house he grew up in the suburb of Pittsburgh. So they got their guy. The Bills, I guess, have their guy. They have promoted offensive coordinator Joe Brady to head coach, and that came down yesterday. And according to ESPN's Peter Schrager, Josh Allen, the quarterback, while he didn't help the front office put together a list for their final decision, he was in the room for many of the candidates' in-person interviews. Remember when Steve Bisciotti, the owner of the Ravens, talked about the firing of John Harbaugh, and he was asked about Lamar Jackson being involved in the coach search process? He said, no, I forget the term he used, but it was like, I own, he plays, something to that effect. Joe Brady was there, so it wasn't like, they had to bring in anybody from the outside they were unfamiliar with. But I don't know how much I would have my quarterback influence who the coach is, because the coach is going to have to influence the decisions about quarterback and make the decisions. And so, do you want to be having to possibly, I don't think this will happen, but, would you bench him, discipline, whatever you have to do for the guy who got you the job? I don't think that's a good situation. Now, Brady is a guy who has had a relationship, and it's not unusual when a coach gets fired. Sean McDermott out, one of the coordinators moves up. That happens. But I just think that having the quarterback involved in the process is not the best way to go. Now, I know, like in high school, I know high school basketball coaches who have gotten jobs, and the principal will bring in the star player of the team, assuming he's coming back for the next year, not like a senior. But they'll have him sit in, maybe ask some questions, and then the principal will go back and say, what do you think? So there is that even at the high school level. But still, at the pro level, I don't think this is a great idea. And he's, even though they're and that's another thing. Is it that important that the coach and the quarterback be like best buddies? I saw the way Phil Simms was handled by Bill Parcells. Tom Landry, as great a coach as he wasn't going to be anybody's buddy. And as much success as Roger Staubach had, they weren't friends. I don't know if that's a great situation. That'll be one to keep an eye on. Tony Romo, when he burst on the scene, 2017, whoa, look at him. Wow, he predicts plays before they happen. The performance that he had in the AFC Championship game where he watched Tom Brady take his team down the field, I believe that was the one, and predicted play after play after play what they were going to do. I mean, he was at the top of his game. He hit broadcasting free agency at the right time, and he was the one to bust the bank. Like, whoa, $1 million a game? $1 million a game? Are you kidding me? It's a hell of a lot more money than he made playing. Well, he's worth it. He's that good. All the other networks want him. Well, now as time has gone by, it's pretty clear he's not as prepared as he used to be. He can't predict plays like he used to because he's out of the league. He doesn't know the teams as well. And he had an awful performance in, I think, the first playoff game with Jacksonville, a playoff game against Buffalo. And he was better in the last game. He's he still knows what he's doing, but the criticism is loud. And it's even reached the point where, whoa, are they going to dump him at CBS? And here's Greg Olson, who was terrific at Fox before he got big-footed out the door by Tom Brady. He's still doing it, but he's on the number 2 team. What about that? Could they possibly do that? You've even heard that J.J. Watt was so good in his first year with Iron Eagle that they may kind of say to Jim Nantz, well, you've given up the Final Four in college basketball. well, just do the Masters, and we'll move Iron Eagle up with what? It's gotten to that. But Romo had sort of a bounce-back performance. He's due a lot of money. I think his contract goes through 2030, so they'd have to eat quite a bit of money, $100 million if they want to do that. So he's staying, and I don't anticipate anything drastic happening before next year. But when he was on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, they talked about the criticism that he has been facing, especially this season.
People are like, what about the criticism here? I was like, well, I mean, do you get, like, you guys go through this all the time too. It's like, you're doing you, and you got to be yourself and everything, and you're trying the best. It's not like you're never not trying your hardest to go be great at something. But then you look at it, and it's like, I mean, your whole crew, the noise is the noise. It's part of being in this job. And to me, it's like it's up, it's down. But at the end of the day, I mean, you don't really listen to things unless, to me, it's like all the fans come up to me and say how much they love us and everything. And it's like, that's what I feel. As far as looking at stuff online, it's just part of the process. But I don't think it really changes things. It's like everyone likes you. I mean, they're watching you. So there has to be something there. But we're also commenting on their teams that are winning and losing. It's like, I don't like someone when he's not fully rooting for my team. So there's a balancing try. I root for both teams. I root for guys who love the sport, who care so deeply, and they want to win. It's like I want them to care as much as I did. And those are the guys you kind of like root for a little bit. And sometimes it comes across a certain way, but I love it. It's a great job.
How do you go about your preparation? Do you try to learn about the players more? Do you try to learn about the scheme more? Because I remember at the beginning of your run, you were basically calling out what was going to happen every single play. And it was epic. It was like actually Romoing, I think is what people started calling it. It was like kind of your calling card for what you were doing at the beginning as you were trying to make your way. Kind of felt like you were shooting from the hip a bit, rode the emotion of game, but then you were calling out plays as well. Is that from your experience? Is it from the week preparation? Like, what is your week ahead of games whenever you're either talking or watching what you're trying to prepare for?
Well, there's a lot that goes into it. I think the biggest thing is it's like a coach or player. You're going to soak in it early in the week. In other words, you start watching the games and you start to like get a sense, for who this team is and what makes them good, where there's their strengths and where's their weaknesses. And so I sit there and eventually you get to a point where you're like, this is problematic for this team. And so I remember doing the Bills-Broncos game, and going into that game, I was like, okay, Denver's the number 1 seed. Obviously that's the number 1 team in the AFC, but Josh Allen's the best player. He's over here. So that's going to be okay. Let's look at this. This is a great defense here. Oh, you know what? This is actually a bad matchup for Denver a little bit. They could have had other teams, but Buffalo is a great team. They can run the football. They're big. Denver's actually faster. It's almost like Denver was built to beat Kansas City. And it's like they didn't necessarily ready to go against Buffalo in this environment. You saw Buffalo impose their will and be able to run the ball on them, but I was like, that's tough. That makes it a lot tougher. So I'm like, all right, give the edge. And they got the quarterback. Okay, this is going to be a tough game. And then all of a sudden you look on the other side and you're like, man, you can run the ball in Buffalo, but I don't see Denver running the ball in Buffalo. It just doesn't seem like that's who they are, their idea. They're not going to impose their will. So I'm like, now it's tougher. And then all of a sudden Bo Nix comes out there and has an incredible game. Sean Payton calls a perfect game. And all of a sudden you see, well, I forgot they have Sean Payton. And Bo Nix is for real. And all of a sudden that defense got after Josh Allen in the past game a couple times, and there's the game.
That's Tony Romo defending, I guess, or dealing with the criticism that he's now facing. And if I were Tony Romo, I would sit down with the producers in the offseason and say, okay, I need to get better. I mean, this is like playing. You got to continue to evolve, and the shtick of being able to predict plays, that's gone, and people are looking at it and going, that's $17 million, really? That Tony Romo, really? So that's perception is reality, and that's what they're facing. It's hard to tell from the ratings because anybody could do the games. People still watch. They want to watch the games. But if you're CBS, you want the best people producing your product. So there's that. Oh, by the way, on the announcer front, before I don't want to forget this today, congratulations to Dan Kolko, who is going to be the full-time announcer for the Nationals in their new deal. They have a partnership with Major League Baseball, and it's called Nationals.TV. I don't know exactly how it's going to work because I'm old and I have cable, but supposedly on my cable system I have Fios, so I'm supposed to get the games. Gosh, Dan Kolko was my son's camp counselor at Camp Airy. My son is 34, so we're going back probably 20 years, close to 20 years. And he went to Delaware, if I'm not mistaken, got out of school, and I introduced him to a few people, and well, he took the ball and he ran with it. He's been very, very successful, especially in his work with the Nationals. He was, for many years, the sideline reporter or the dugout reporter for them, and then has done a lot of interview work and so forth with Masson, and has been with Bob Carpenter the last few years on a reduced schedule. He's done, I would estimate, 30 to 40 games a year. I think that's probably in the ballpark. But now he's on for the whole 162, and it's very gratifying to see a story like that. He's very polished at what he does. He's young and fit, and probably has developed a relationship with a number of players over the years. I think that Franston is pretty good at what he does. So I think they'll make a good duo. And I don't know where the whole broadcasting thing is going to go, because this is new territory. Remember when the Nationals came here, or became the Nationals as the Montreal Expos in 2005, that was part of the deal, that there was going to be this network which was going to be controlled by the Orioles, and they were going to televise both teams. And a percentage of the money would go to the Nationals. Now, they spent almost 20 years in court fighting over the money. Peter Angelos, very difficult to deal with. Angelos passes away. The team is sold to David Rubenstein, and Rubenstein said, yeah, we'll let you out of the deal at the end of last season, which they did. Now, I don't know what's happening with the Orioles. Will they stay alive as just Masson? It's hard to imagine, because the network was, from what I was told, was on very shaky ground with both teams. So I don't know how that's going to work. But we will count on Dan Kolko as the announcer for all the games, and that they as an organization, they do broadcasting well. I mean, Charlie and Dave Jagler and Charlie Slows, they're as good a duo as you're going to find. They are terrific on the radio, and now you got the TV with young Dan Kolko, who sometimes an announcer comes in cold. We've even had it as good as Bob Carpenter is and was for 20 years as the main announcer. He lived in Oklahoma. He knew the team. He had a place here during the season. But the roots are with guys like Dan Kolko, a kid who grew up in Montgomery County, went to Einstein High School, and now gets an opportunity with his hometown team to be the number one guy. So hats off to Dan, and very pleased. We actually put him in the Jewish Hall of Fame, and it's not in a phone booth. We put him in the Jewish Hall of Fame back in November. Coming up, what's the secret sauce for the Seattle Seahawks, who are going to the Super Bowl with a twice-discarded quarterback? We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
I believe I said Sam Darnold was discarded twice, actually 3 times. Drafted by the Jets, as you know. Famously, the microphones picked him up saying during a Monday night game, "I'm seeing ghosts out there." They discarded him. He winds up at Carolina. They discard him. He winds up with the Minnesota Vikings and really did well last year. But they had J.J. McCarthy in the queue, so they elected not to re-sign him. Winds up in Seattle, and he's going to the Super Bowl. He's getting it done. And it's a great story. We're going to hear tons and tons about it next week when all the media and all the players wind up in San Francisco for the game. But Brock Huard was a really good quarterback at the University of Washington, played in the NFL for a number of years, mostly as a backup quarterback, and now does sports radio in Seattle. And he was on yesterday on the Rich Eisen show to talk about the secret sauce that Sam Darnold brings to the Seattle Seahawks.
Every one of them, he was pressured. 2 of the 3, he takes it right in the chin, stands in there, delivers. And that's why the guys love him. And he'll take no credit, like the coach, like John Schneider, like the culture there. He is not a credit hound. He is not a look at me. He's about everybody else. And man, you get behind the scenes, Rich, and that is real. As you get close to this team, as you'll be around them, as you'll be on Radio Row, as you get even more touch points, you'll be like, damn, this team is all about each other, and they don't really care and don't need any credit. A little different than the last team that went to the Super Bowl 13 and 14.
Right.
They love yelling at everybody. This team just loves one another quite a bit.
Is that Mike McDonald's secret sauce? Is that where it comes
100%. 100%. 100%. I don't know if you saw the little thing that went viral on our show yesterday where we asked him, like, where did this come from? And why did you say, we don't care? Like, why did you say it that way, on set? And he went into the whole background of, like, sitting up there on stage, can't hear Cam. I think I've got to be loud. And he even said, he's like, classic overthinker. That's what I am, classic overthinker. And that's who he is, Rich. He's like the most vulnerable, transparent, and we better appreciate it now while he's in his 30s, because as we know, this league will age you. This league will kind of take maybe temper some of that over the years. But right now, man, he's a real one. He's a vulnerable one, transparent one, and the guys are all in.
Well, that photograph that we just had up on the screen, Brock Hewitt here on the Rich Eisen Show, and for those who are listening, it's John Schneider smiling and taking a selfie with the coach that he chose after surprising many by ending the Pete Carroll era. And can you walk everybody through what John Schneider has done to make this moment happen, building and also ending prior to the building what was in the building there?
Yeah.
Brock.
Yeah, there's a lot there, Rich. I think John will speak to that next week at the Super Bowl. You'll hear more of that. He would say really quickly, like, whoa, I did not end that. It was Jody Allen, the ownership, that did have to make a decision there of kind of what direction do we go? Do we blow the whole thing up? Do we get a new GM? Do we, get a new head coach? And it was the trust that Jody Allen placed in John and gave then John the opportunity, Rich, to oversee the whole deal. And we've played the clip a bunch on our show, Pete Carroll's final words, and he loves John.
Yes.
And his final words at his press conference when he left was, "Hey, buddy, now it's you. Now it's on Johnny. Like, go get him." Because now John was in charge of the whole coaching staff. And that was the biggest deal, Rich, in the end. It wasn't about Pete lost his feel for coaching. It was, the coaching tree, it died up and dried up. And some of the loyal coaches and loyalty he showed to some of them, it ran its course. And so for John to come in and, man, Russell Wilson was the first big swing back in 12, and it helped propel them with everybody else. This was a huge swing to wait for Mike McDonald, to wait through the AFC Championship game, to land him, and those two, man, simpatico. It's why their offseason was so good. And the only reason it's ever good in the offseason, through the draft, through the free agency, through the trade, is those guys are totally and completely aligned. McDonald is blunt. He's to the point. He's really clear in his conviction of what he wants with the groceries. And then John is incredible through his relationships across college campuses with other GMs to get what needs to get done for those groceries to be delivered. And, man, did they cook this year.
Man, the groceries too, right, Brock? I mean, it's hard to pick one. Eamon Worry, Woolen, Witherspoon, Charles Cross, JSN. I just named 5. There's more.
Yeah.
And then there's the groceries that you can add in free agency. DeMarcus Lawrence, my goodness gracious, going to get Leonard Williams a couple years ago by trade. What sticks out to you?
Oh, it's the 2 free agent acquisitions, because that's where they've been really good with trades. Marshawn and others through the years have been really good in drafting through the years. It's the free agent acquisitions. It's Aiden Dirty's background in Dallas, who was the D-line coach, who convinced Mike and John, like, no. DeMarcus Lawrence still has gas in the tank. I didn't think he did. I don't know if you did. None of us thought he could be this effective and play almost every game this year and be an absolute dog that makes that whole group better. And then it's Cooper Kupp, who may not run like he used to run, and he's not as explosive as he used to be. But my God, what he did for JSN and that room and those blockers and that leadership. So
like what? Like what? What do you got for me there?
Just ask JSN. Just say, hey, and Rich would be 25 minutes. But it's more than anything. Both those 2 veterans play like they're league minimum guys. They've got tens of millions in the bank, but they play as if they've earned nothing. They block their butts off for Cooper, and DeMarcus runs people down and sacked fumbles and sacks and effort plays that you don't see from veterans. And, it's Cooper Kupp he's different, man. He, in his years with McVay and Stafford, he's just different. Listening to him talk, watching him on a practice field, the level of detail, how much he sees the game, knows the game, plays the game like a quarterback, brings all of that. It's as if you have Sam Darnold in the receiver room, and that is uncommon in the NFL. And so he brings all of that to life for those guys. And that's not coincidence. The JSN became the best receiver in the league this year with Puka. Oh, and Puka became right there with him as the best receiver in the game because of his time with Cooper Kupp. So he's extraordinary.
That's Brock Heward, former quarterback in the NFL, now a talk show host in Seattle, about the amazing story of the Seahawks. And it's funny that you bring in Sam Darnold and nobody goes, oh, wow, that's really a great upgrade from Geno Smith. Well, turned out to be. And Geno Smith winds up with the Raiders, and now they're picking number one. Pretty amazing story. That will do it for me today. Bram is coming up next, and I will see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.